Good morning, everyone. We're trying to find out if Tim's in traffic or having a rough Monday morning, so I will fill his shoes in the meantime. I will call to order the Concord Middle School Building Committee meeting. It is approximately 7:35 on Monday, October, what day is it? 28th. So we have a short agenda today, but we are...
Is the meeting being recorded?
This meeting is being recorded, thank you, and is available on their website, yes. Thank you. I'm gonna turn it right over to Hill and Mike Carroll to talk us through the Designer Selection Subcommittee short list of firms. Just so everyone knows, the Designer Subcommittee met on Friday morning for a few hours to go through the 14 proposals that we received from very qualified and exciting designer firms. So after much discussion, Mike will walk us through it, but we were able to highlight some of the best of the best.
Absolutely. So just to reiterate what Dawn stated there, we did receive 14 separate individual designer proposals, which I think was a very good showing for the project. So I think that was very good. At the same time, it did, I'll say, tax the designer subcommittee. Everybody had to spend a lot of time over the last 10 days or so reading through every one of those and trying to decipher them and understand them and score them. So everybody had a scorecard that they could actually go through and actually score themselves. As we got into it, as we shortlisted, we didn't specifically do that scoring to say that this person or this group was number one, this one was number two. What we did is we went through it, and each person had their own top team and bottom teams, and we just kind of talked it through. And what we decided, what the committee decided, was that there was going to be kind of three buckets, if you will, and using verbiage that you may have seen with the MSBA and with the state, it was most preferred, preferred, and less preferred. So we kind of tried to find three buckets, and on Friday, after going through them the initial time, we ended up having 5 in the most preferred bucket, 5 out of the 14. So that's not to say that the other proposals were bad, it just they weren't the most preferred. So with that understanding that we had those 5 as the most preferred out of the group, there was a discussion whether we needed to adjust that group when it was all said and done after we've gone through everybody to see, is there anybody that we initially put in that group that on second thought should be dropped down? Is there anybody that we had in one of the other groups that we thought should be moved up? And ultimately, I think the committee was comfortable with the group that they had in that most preferred option. And what we've done here, everybody should have not only an agenda in front of you, but also a summary sheet here. And that summary sheet shows you the 5 that we had as the most preferred. So what we're going to be asking for at the end of the meeting here, or at the end of the discussion here, is for a vote to allow us to move forward with contacting these 5 firms, setting up meetings with them for interviews, and we've got the interview date scheduled. I think it's a week from Wednesday. And we're going to be trying to get through all the interviews in one day. The interview schedule is basically about a 60-minute interview process, figuring round numbers, 40 minutes for presentation, 20 minutes for follow-up Q&A, and then we've got a few minutes in between each so that the committee members can stretch their legs and get ready for the next one, basically. So that's kind of a plan for that. Do we want to actually go through the names and just kind of tell everybody what we did? So,
Are you going to do that?
yeah, I can do that.
I'm happy to as well.
Okay. Well, go ahead. Why don't you go ahead, Don, and I'll try and make it easy.
Okay.
Right.
So in no particular order, we decided that these are not ranked. They're literally just in order of how they were reviewed. Applicant number 5 that we referred to on Friday is Dorn Whittier. They're from out of Newburyport, and some of the highlights of their proposal had to do with the fact that they provided multiple schedule options, at least 2 schedule options. Overall, it was a very good and well-written proposal, and they focused on Concord and who we are, what we're looking for, and what was unique about our needs. They demonstrated experience through project solutions, so they'd say, hey, you have this problem, we've solved that in another project, and that seemed like it was well received in showing, listening to their clients and then, responding. They had lots of examples of addition renovation as well as new construction on occupied sites, which we all know could be a factor for us. They also designed the Gates School, which many of the SBC members have toured, maybe multiple times, and like and enjoy what was done at that school. They have good school and net zero experience, but not a lot on the envelope, EUI, or passive house. They had some creative initial design concepts. The analysis of the site that they did seemed to make sense. Solid team of sub-consultants, and they appear to be good and open to listening to us and responding to what we're looking for. So in a nutshell, Dawn Whittier made the best of the best for those reasons. Does anyone have any questions on them? And we have copies of the proposals if anyone wants to. These are mine. I hope to get it back so I can reference them, but I'm happy to share mine. You have some there as well.
Yeah, and I
So,
think Jared
I
may
have
have
some.
an extra set as well.
Excellent. So if anyone is looking, theirs is here.
And just before we go on, just so everybody understands, what we did was I asked the committee members to send me kind of an email on what they liked on each individual team, but we also have started compiling a list of potential questions. This is what we like. We've got the questions on a separate sheet, so we're working on those questions. Some of the questions might be something that would be asked across the board of all applicants. Some of the questions might be specific to one applicant, that there was something specific in their proposal that we wanted to understand a little bit better or understand a little bit more, but we weren't planning on going through those questions and those other comments, I think, here today. This was just kind of giving an overview so people understand.
Yeah, we want the full committee and the community to understand why these firms sort of rose to the top versus some others that obviously we had a large pool of applicants. So everyone good on Dawn Whittier? Okay, applicant number 6 from Friday was Feingold Alexander Architects. They, as you know, did the original study for the middle school. So some of the reasons that were provided that they rose to the top of the applicant pool was that, again, they had multiple schedule options, good history and relationship already with the town, and knowledge of the project through the prior study that I just mentioned. They had clear objectives and deliverables listed for the different project phases, which demonstrates a clear understanding of the process. A solid team of sub-consultants, including their sustainability sub-consultant, Bryburn, which gives them a great sustainability capability, so I think that was well received. They have some passive house experience, and passive house partner is called out. They understand that there may be a preference for construction manager at risk, but also have design bid build experience. They have some creative initial design concepts. The listed project manager has the best sustainability resume within their firm, and we believe that may be why she was selected. And then it was overall a well-received submission, and they gave specific details on our project for us to react to. They had a leg up here from doing the feasibility study, is what the parentheses part of the comment was. So, yes.
Could you explain what it means when you say passive house experience and passive house partner is called out? What is called out mean?
So I think their sustainability sub-consultant actually has passive house experience.
Okay.
And so that, I think they were the only, one of the things we were able to do is the subcommittee for designer review, Hill made a matrix so that you could see, similar to what you see here, but it was all 14. And it was not only the designers, but all their sub-consultants. So you can see there's colors there that identify any firms that might have been MBE or WBE, minority-owned businesses or women-owned businesses. but it also identified all the mechanical, the plumbing, the sustainability, the cost estimators, really their whole team. And I think when you did that, there may have been several HVAC contractors, for example, that were across multiple teams, but they had to kind of a unique sub-consultant with the sustainability, where several of them, there was a company, the Green Company, I think was used by many. This was one company that was kind of unique to Feingold.
And they have a passive house product, I think is what, so by called out just means identified. Like they identified their sub-consultant who happened to have passive house experience, which I think was desirable from the overall committee.
Thank you.
Yeah, I guess I just had, there were only 2 firms that did that. So that and number 12, SMMA.
Thanks, Matt. Any other comments on Feingold before we move on? Okay, applicant number 7 from Friday. So everyone knows we didn't use names, or we tried not to on Friday. It's very difficult, but so we're calling out who they were at the time. So they were applicant number 7, Flansburgh, and the highlights from them include they were Concord focused. And when I say that, just so everyone understands, some of the proposals were fairly generic. They say, oh, we can do this, we can do that, we can. To write a proposal that's unique to the town and the project shows that you've done research and understand them. So a couple of these I'm realizing as I'm saying it, I know what it means, but maybe others don't. It's very clear when there's sort of a generic proposal put out there versus one that's unique to the town. And
I think we could characterize it this way. They would put in their presentation, in their proposal, things like, this is what we did in this project, here's how it might apply in Concord. So they were looking for the transfer and not set in stone, but suggesting their kind of thinking.
Right. Great, thank you, Court. So they were also applying experiences elsewhere to Concord Middle School, to Court's point. They have a long history of public school work in Massachusetts. They also demonstrated relevant experience on schools of similar size and scope, which we asked for. They went into depth about building within a budget and on time, which we all know is very important. They have hands-on experience meeting the Living Building Challenge standards with Hawaii's Prep Academy. Small but shows commitment is what the note says. Strong representation of commitment to sustainable design and energy efficiency, including calling out an EUI goal of 25. 2/3 of the staff hold green accreditations, including LEED and Passive House. I think that's just demonstrating their commitment to sustainability, if others are wondering why that's important. Creative initial design concepts, again. Lots of people did sort of a first step. If you're wanting to see the proposal, they may have taken a stab at something. So that, again, just some creativity is already shown there. They gave multiple options to show that they put forth some effort specifically for us. So in their case, they didn't just have one option. I believe they had multiple, just as early concept ideas. And then they have international experience, and that may be a plus because it may bring fresh innovation to the project. So, anyone want to add anything? I'll disclose this here too. I used to work for Flansburgh a long time ago when I first came out of school. I said that I filed the right forms, and I said that on Friday. I'm not sure many of these comments were even mine, but I do know a couple people that still work there. I worked there almost 20 years ago, so. Okay, Sims, okay, applicant number 12, Sims Manning McKee Associates, I think is what the SMMA stands for, if anyone's wondering. So Sims Manning is, they go by that, or SMMA, which can be a mouthful. They are applicant number 12. They have worked in Concord before, both on Alcott and Thoreau, many years ago. They have coordination of sub-consultants who are mostly in-house. So Sims is what's called an AE firm, an architectural/engineering firm. They have in-house engineers to do a lot of the sub-consulting work, so HVAC, electrical, sustainability, they do a lot of it in-house. So again, we have this chart if anyone's interested, but it can be overwhelming if you're not sure what you're looking for. But it's basically the entire list of sub-consultants, and they list themselves for quite a few. So that could be a benefit because you're working right next to some of your engineers. Strong school experience, including similar size and designing net zero energy buildings. They have success in developing a low EUI, 23 is called out, and 100% net zero school design in Lincoln, and navigating Lincoln's politics for affirmation override vote. I'm not sure who worded that, but well done. That's my words,
Good thing we don't have any politics to talk about.
This is the first time I'm seeing this, by the way, so as I was reading it, I was like, oh, that's a great way to put it. They aligned with a passive house subcontractor, Stephen Winter, strong reputation for aggressive building envelope design, and whoever wrote this said that that's a major plus. They're a large firm, they have 55 architects. I think they're in Cambridge, in Central Square. Strong commitment to commissioning and has a deep engineering competencies. So they would not do commissioning on their own project, but they do third-party commissioning, if that makes sense. So they're checking other people's installation to make sure that machines are running properly and the systems are all, that they're not backwards. For example, I had that found on one of my recent projects. Things were running backwards. So anyway, they do that, but as part of that, that helps their engineers understand systems better. So they also use the Concord's vision of the 21st century learning graphic, and that whoever's comment this was surprised that more firms didn't include it. So that came out of the planning sessions that were done. I was trying to see if I could find it here real quick. Back in the last winter, I want to say, we followed up and a graphic basically of all the priorities that came out of that. Here it is. It's hard to see at this scale, but this is our graphic if anyone didn't know. And that just is recognizing that they went and found the work we did and they read it, and again, they're sort of doing their homework. So that was Sims. Anyone have any questions?
Just the one piece of their more recent partnership with other firms, but
Yeah.
been another resource for them.
Yes, so I'm forgetting the name, but bear with me. It's
Ewing
Cole.
Cole.
Yep, and I think they've worked with them on a few local projects, and that has a benefit.
Sorry, what's that partnership? I didn't get the, they have a partnership with you and Cole, and that's,
Yep, they are
that
a,
value is what?
correct me if I'm wrong, others may know, because I don't know Ewing Cole that well, but I believe they're a highly reputable sustainability, are they an architectural, does anyone know?
Big
Architectural
architecture.
firm,
Yeah, big architectural firm.
so,
They do a lot of big stuff.
So,
But they only have two, there aren't a whole lot, it's not a whole lot of Ewing Cole in the proposal, but.
yeah. Yeah, and that's something I think we'd want to understand more at the interview process, but I think they found success together on both Lincoln and maybe Hanscom.
Oh.
So they worked on both of those as a team. I think it's mostly Sims team with some Ewing Cole, if I'm understanding it right, but that's a question I had reviewing the proposal, sort of what's the clear line of roles, right? And another, great segue into applicant 13, also teamed with another architectural firm. So I mentioned on Friday, if anyone was here or listening, that when you pair with another architectural team, there are benefits and there are downsides. And as an architect, I've seen it successful and I've seen it not as successful. And I would want to understand the clear roles and deliverables and who's actually doing what and who's responsible for what. So I think in both cases, these were done as a sustainability supplement, if that makes sense. Sort of firms that have more experience doing this, because there's not a lot of experience with net zero, with any passive house schools in Massachusetts. So I think everyone's kind of looking outside of what they're capable of and looking to team with firms that have some of this experience we're looking for. So applicant 13, Studio G, also teamed with another architecture firm, so bear with me, because does it say here?
I didn't write it.
Ashley McGraw, And they're out of Syracuse, if I remember reading the proposal correctly. I had to look them up, I'm not familiar with them. So they teamed with a strong sustainability architectural firm. They have comparable school experience. They're a smaller firm, only 11 architects, so we would expect that this partnership might help them supplement from a capacity standpoint as well, but again, a question that may come up at the interview process. They have passive house experience. They have a solid team of sub-consultants. Again, this chart can tell you who they carried. They have strong sustainability expertise through Ashley McGraw, including Living Building Challenge and Passive House. So that firm is bringing what Studio G doesn't have from a sustainability standpoint. And then their sections on universal design and using the building as a teaching tool were highlighted as positives. So, those are the 5 firms. Lots of excitement around them. They all are very capable of designing great schools in Massachusetts, and I guess we're looking for them to bring their A game next Wednesday when they interview. Pat looks like she has a question.
Well, I do.
Yes, good.
You know,
What is it?
you know me well. I missed a meeting, so I may have missed the Sustainability 101.
No, you did not.
Didn't.
There hasn't happened
It
yet.
hasn't happened yet. Okay, so could someone just explain to me passive house in relationship to school building and how critical that is? 'Cause that keeps popping up, and I think I just heard you say there's not a lot of schools that are passive.
There are no schools in Massachusetts.
Okay.
There are 3 schools in the entire country. 2 are in Maine. I want to say the 3rd's in Virginia. I'm looking at Matt because I had to look it up.
Yeah, there are no public schools. I mean, so it's in the RFS.
Okay.
I guess it is a demonstration that firms pay attention to detail on sustainability. I mean, I'm going to talk about this more on Thursday,
Okay.
but just quickly, net zero energy is kind of like, which we've talked a lot about as
Right.
well, is kind of like an end goal. That's kind of like a finished product. It doesn't give a lot of guidance on how to get there. So the Passive House program, which is originally came over from Germany about, I forget, 10 or 12, 15 years ago, has really focused on the steps that are required to make a very efficient building. And so it goes step by step and focuses on comfort, indoor air quality, and reducing the energy consumption within the building. So I think the value of having it in the RFS was just kind of a way to identify how much firms were focusing on it and addressing our desire to look into it. I mean, I know we haven't committed as a committee to go for it. I understand that there's concerns about going for it, but I think the value of having it in the RFS was it helps kind of differentiate some of the firms who pick up on it and realize the kind of effort that it would require versus those who just focused on the lead. I think it was a way to see who was paying attention to kind of the pieces that will require making this a very efficient building.
So passive house refers to a set of steps and activities and actual deliverables that have to happen in order to achieve net zero.
There are a lot of very specific metrics. It's not necessarily about just net zero, but there are a lot of very specific metrics and steps that design and construction firms both need to do in order to get to ultimately a very efficient building. And so dealing with issues like Don mentioned, commissioning, it's very frequent that systems are not set up properly. And so Passive House helps ensure that all of those steps are achieved in a way to get to an efficient building. And it's been done not on schools. I mean, I know it says Passive House. It's been applied to commercial buildings of all types. There's there's a building going up. I forget how tall the building is, but in Boston right now it's 30 stories of passive house. So there's a 30-story building in New York City that's gone up. So it's not just, single family homes.
Okay.
Those are living units, right? Those are
multifamily
one's a
buildings.
dorm,
Yep.
and one is, I don't know if it's
Yep.
apartments or condos.
Yep.
So again, like a little bit of different application as far as what's happening inside. I know there's a dorm out in Williamstown, Williams College, has a passive house dorm.
Yep.
So there's a few in Massachusetts, but no schools, and definitely no public schools.
Thank you.
Definitely no problem. Yeah, and sorry, actually the 30-story in Boston is office buildings.
It's office. Great. Yes.
So first of all, thanks to the subcommittee. It's a lot of work to go through those proposals.
Yes.
I've had experience with that, which is why I was relieved that I was not asked to do it this time around.
If I look tired, then.
Yeah. Is it fair to say that it gets pretty gradient when you're going through the proposals in terms of distinguishing from top to bottom, because everyone has kind of the same, most of them are hitting the notes that the review committee wants to hear, and they don't put together teams unless those teams match the same profile, right?
Yeah, there were a couple exceptions to that, I would say, that sort of either didn't provide things that we asked for, so that in the scoring, at least in my world, they got zeros. So there were a few firms we talked about that were less preferred, I think it was easier to knock them off. But then through the middle and top, it was definitely, yeah, I would agree.
How would you, or do you think at this point without, before the interviews, was there a way from the proposals to measure or evaluate kind of the administrative side?
Not to the extent we would like, I think, would be our answer, although it's not something we discussed in any explicit way. But I think our first cautionary answer would have to be no, we're gonna have to really examine that carefully.
So I think the couple of things that did come out was some of them talked about schedule, some of them talked about on time, on budget, and just managing it, that type of thing. So I think that's typically something that's less of a firm level and more of a team level. Like one of the things I usually consider is when we've got 14 packages being submitted, the firms are being submitted. And you look at the team too, but it's the firm and the team. And then when I get to the interview, it's the team. The firm's they've already proven the firm, now I need the team, So in the first step, it's a little bit of both, but in the second, it's the team and that administration that to me is that team gonna be able to run that job?
A perfect example, one firm that did not rise to the highest level had town meeting before the end of schematic design. And from an administrative level, I'm like, that's not at all how that works. Like that to me said, okay, I'm not sure they fully understood the process, right? So for me, that was an easy, administrative, or if there were other things that others picked up, that was just one that I picked up. I was like, whoa, that's not at all when you go to town meeting and ask for money. You have to wait till you have your budget, your total budget put together. So you can get a few things out of the proposal that administratively give you hints about them, but I think Mike's right, it really comes out at the interview. And anyone's invited to come to the interviews next Wednesday.
Some lack of public school experience, and
That's right.
that probably is reflects on administrative process as well.
Or some had schools,
Some
but not the
had less,
MSBA
right.
process, which, we're trying to at least follow because it's tried and true, proven process, so, yeah.
Could you just let us know when and where, what time and where the interviews are?
All day. They start at 9.
9?
Yep, and I think the last one, they'll go 9 to 10, then it'll be 10:15 to 11:15, then 11, I don't know when the lunch break is. There will be 5, an hour long here.
Here, okay.
Yep. And there'll be 15 minutes in between each just to kind of use a restroom or, get the,
Yeah, the first one starts at 9 and the last one starts at 2:15 basically. So
so there's,
it's pretty much that entire day.
right. And then there'll be deliberation at the end.
Mhm.
And I want to say these will be taped but not live. Is that how we did it last time? Okay.
Yes.
Yes, that's the plan.
Yes.
I would just advocate, and this is really for Mike, I would advocate for a question along the lines of tell us about a time when you had a conflict with an OPM on a job and how did you resolve it?
Great, good question.
Hope nobody's watching.
We on Friday, we benefited from public comment as well, and I think that's important to note. And we understand the rigors of a 7:30 meeting, but the public participation is so very important. Question, for interviews, we don't invite public comment, however, correct?
Correct,
It's not a
correct.
typical meeting, I just want that.
Yes, yes. Just listen.
We certainly invite participation in the form of be in the room or catch it on Minuteman Media later. Stay
Absolutely.
informed.
Thank you for that. Yep. Speaking of, yes, Brian.
Sorry, will you be posting that interview schedule on the town calendar?
Yes, I believe so. So these firms don't know yet.
Okay.
So we're, after this meeting, Mike is reaching out to all 5 firms, confirming times and location, and then we will be posting.
Okay.
Yep.
And a question that I received over the weekend was, would we put on the website the proposals in electronic form? And my suspicion is, and I don't want to get ahead of ourselves here, but my suspicion is because it's now public knowledge, these are public documents, that wouldn't be inappropriate, or how does that work?
I guess I don't know. I don't think the MSBA.
Yeah,
Or it's a
that's
come into
nothing I
Ripley and
have
have a
seen
look.
done.
Yeah, I don't think they're
That's
strictly public
good.
documents, I mean, some of that stuff is proprietary, but I mean, I think there's a,
Yeah.
I mean, I would just check, it's possible they are, but I think generally out of respect for the firms,
I do too.
you know, if
Yeah.
there's not really a demand for them. You know, because like I said, they put a lot of time and energy into those and some of that stuff.
Resources.
Mhm.
It's their ideas that they
Yeah.
usually sell, so.
All right.
I know there's
Yeah.
financials too that they ask us not to post. I don't know if there was any on these particular 14, but
No.
Not really, but I think typically what we see is if there was a freedom of information request, you would provide it, but I wouldn't typically post it.
All right.
Yeah, I think the MSBA doesn't usually put these out as.
Which is not to
Public
say
documents, but-
design committee wouldn't be forthcoming with their thinking.
Right.
Oh, sure.
Certainly the
Yeah.
evaluations
Yeah,
should be posted.
okay. Good. So where are we?
I think,
Is that- is
I
that-
think we're at the point where you're gonna entertain a motion, because we're gonna go formal with these 5, if indeed that's the thinking of the committee.
So I think that motion, if I can just clarify what we're looking to do, is we're looking for the committee to allow Hill to reach out and contact all 5 firms, confirm timing. The timing will be for a meeting a week from Wednesday. It'll be, like we said, pretty much the duration of the day. At the same time, as we're reaching out to them, Hill is also going to be checking references on all 5, and we're gonna be able to report that back to the team, so those references will be done prior to the interview. And that's what we're looking for a motion to allow us to proceed with.
So moved.
Thank you. Can I-
Second.
Thank you. All right, so a motion's been made and
Discussion.
seconded. Is there any further discussion?
Just one note, I think Mike had mentioned this before, we have 5, and that's still a lot to review. It's good having 5, because they may discover between now and interview time, a firm might drop out, might have taken on another job, and they're not available to us. So, to the extent somebody says, geez, why do you have 5, why don't you just have a top 3 or 4? It's nice to have some extra ones.
You always want to have at least 3, and if somebody wants, that's why. I think if we had found 4 that we thought were the best, we might have only had 4, but I think we had the 5th. And not that one of them was the 5th, but we had 5, so we held the 5.
Yeah, on Friday, we made a conscious, we were trying to get to 4 and ultimately decided that the 5 we had were all really good and worth talking to. So we went with 5. Okay, any other discussion? Okay, if not, we have a motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No? Great. Excellent. Does anyone have any correspondence that has come through? No? Great. Public comments? No? And then any new business? Great.
So we meet on Thursday.
Thursday, again at 7:30, and I believe the agenda is sustainability 101, if you will.
We have
And I don't remember if there's maybe meeting notes and things on it, but.
Yeah.
Do you want a
There's a
communications plan
communication.
Thursday?
Communication, is
on
that
there.
Thursday as well?
Yes.
Great,
Yes.
excellent. I look forward to that.
Tim's never gotten us through this fast.
All about efficiency. Thank you for pointing that out. It's a great way to start a Monday, right? Okay, motion to adjourn? So moved, any second?
Second.
All right, great, motion's been made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Great,
Thank you.
Thank you.
okay, guys.